Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am delighted to introduce today's guest, Dr. Corinna Freitag. Corinna is an executive coach, advisor, and speaker with over 30 years of expertise in natural and human sciences through university, industry, and continuing education. She coaches STEM professionals to overcome workplace challenges so that they look forward to Mondays again. Oh, that is fantastic. Executives hire her to develop and retain their top talent. Corinna holds a PhD in chemistry. She is certified as an executive coach and received her Associate Certified Coach ACC credential through the International Coach Federation. She has lived in different countries and worked for over 18 years globally in the automotive and chemical industry in various positions, with colleagues on the shop floor up to senior vice presidents, which led her to being the Global Operational Excellence Leader for 5+ years. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Corinna Freitag, who is joining us from her home office in Northern Germany. Welcome, Corinna.
Hey, Tammy. Thanks for having me.
We've known each other for a while, and I'm excited to share your story and your journey and to learn more about you through this conversation on Work from the Inside Out. We love to learn about people's formative years and how they may or may not have informed where they are today. So take us back there.
Yeah, I think there are two things that were formative for me.
Yeah.
The one thing that as a child and long years after, I felt that nothing comes easy to me. And I had to work hard for everything. So, for example, in school, I had to learn a lot to get solar grades. I had an older sister, and she almost did not have to learn. She had excellent grades in school. In hindsight, I'm glad about it because it helped me to develop endurance and persistence. And the other thing is that I was very shy and introverted and did not talk a lot, and it was difficult for me to make friends. Again, my older sister was the total opposite. She was very extrovert, and to her, at least to me, it seems like it was very easy to make friends and so on. And people really loved her. So for years, I really had this strong belief that I'm not good with other people. And I think these two items really is that I developed this endurance and persistence, and that I believed for so many years, and I'm not good with people. This was transformative and gave me a direction where I went.
Wow. Those are a lot of beliefs to develop early in your life about who you are, right? I can imagine maybe even some of the messages you got from adults and who wanted to try to draw you out more, or I don't know if that's true. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I remember being a kid myself, and the kids who were more quiet or shy, people always were trying to draw them out, and I think probably made it even harder for them in some way.
Yeah. What I remember was sometimes we had the same teachers, and then the teachers wondered. So I remember there was a math teacher, and after the first exam was this teacher, before he gave the exam back with the marks, he said, "Oh, Corinna, can you come for a moment?" And then he was, "What happened for you during this day? Because you have a really bad mark." But because he expected that, because my sister, she was very good at math, and so he expected that I would be the same. And I was just like, it was a regular day.
Yeah, same stuff, different day. It's like you wanted to wear a sign that said, "I'm not my sister." You just made me reflect a little bit for a moment, because I had an older brother who I followed in school by a few years. And there were several times where I had some of the same teachers he had, and I knew there was no way I was going to be like him. It's a funny thing to be in that position where you do follow in a sibling's footsteps through school like that. And you wonder, are they going to expect you to be the same kind of student or the same kind of person? In a way, you could say being different. You could say your sister was the one who was different, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I think a lot of our cultures tend to make people who are more introverted the ones who feel different, right?
It's a very good point. I also could have said she's different, but yeah, I felt all the years like that I'm different and I should be different, or I'm not as the norm expects me to be.
And so tell me more about how that translated into developing endurance and persistence. When did you become aware that endurance and persistence were on your sides? I'm curious how you walked through those younger years, let's say in your sister's shadow, so to speak, and how you moved through that and then developing this endurance, because we know how the story turned out, right? We know you have your PhD and your coaching certifications, and you've had a career in the sciences and you're doing coaching, you're doing all these amazing things. So it's not like you've just been sitting in a corner being quiet all the time, right? You've been making a mark on the world. I could imagine that it wasn't easy.
Yeah, that's true. And for me, it was because I thought, or I had this belief, I'm not good with people. But because I love science, I was curious, and I was curious about why things work the way they work. For example, why or how is toothpaste produced that you have the stripes in them, kind of those things. I was curious about this. And therefore, I decided to study chemistry. And I had this already in school and I liked it. I did not know what really to do with it. And thought it's interesting. And so I started to study it. And I think during those years, this endurance and persistence helped me because in Germany, it's a very long time, especially then to get to the PhD. But at that time, I still had the pre-diploma and the diploma. So to get the PhD, this took me almost 10 years. And it was not that I failed and then had to repeat it semesters. It was just that it took so long time.
Yeah.
But then it really helped me because there were topics. So for example, physics. It's in chemistry, I'm good, but with physics, there is so much stuff I really don't get it. But I still had to do an exam and so on. But then I just went through it and learned and passed, and just passing was good enough.
I'm curious, what within you, like you said, from a young age, you had a tape running through your head saying, I'm not good with other people. Were you also saying to yourself, I'm not good at school like my sister is? How did you see yourself as a student and then emerging into a 10-year journey towards a PhD?
Yeah, I will say it's interesting. I mean, for me, it was like that. I thought I'm not a good student at school because of my marks. And I would have liked to have better marks, but I was okay, just I don't get better marks. And in hindsight, I would have been able to have had better marks if at that time I would have different ways of teaching and learning.
Yeah.
But within the system, I could not do a better job. But regarding chemistry, I just could start studying it because there were very few people who studied it. I did not have to do a test upfront from school. I also had math during chemistry, and I discussed with another math teacher whom I had during the last years in school what she thinks, if I can make it. She was, yeah, if you just study enough, then you will make it.
You felt encouraged. I'm curious about the other adults in your life. Were they encouraging to you to pursue anything in particular, or were they giving you a hard time about your marks?
During school, I was lucky because my parents knew that it's different. So they were not telling me, oh, you need to be better. So no. And especially I remember that as I was in elementary school, that my mother was sitting there with me and doing homework and helping me. I had a lot of support from her. At the time, I said that I want to study chemistry because I was the first person out of our family who wanted to go to university. At that time, they were skeptical, and my father was saying things, if I do this, that then I end up manufacturing production work. But at the end, I worked for production and manufacturing, which in another way than we would have expected.
So wait a minute, your sister, for whom school came more easily and her marks were better, she did not go to university.
Exactly.
It's interesting how things happen like that. I was just curious because you described yourself a certain way as a younger child. And then next thing you know, it's like, I took 10 years, got a PhD. It's, wait a minute, something happened in between there. But I hear that you had support at home and that you weren't in one of these families where the parents were saying, oh, you got to do better, you got to do better. It was like they saw that you were trying your best. And that you probably just learned differently. And at that point in time, schools weren't always differentiating their instruction in ways that they do now. It's interesting to hear about those formative years and how you took to chemistry and you tolerated physics. So by the time you got the PhD, did you feel more, or did you have more of a sense of direction of what you wanted to do with chemistry?
Definitely, I knew that I don't want to stay at university, and then I want to go to industry. And at that time, I was not really sure what people do with chemistry in industry. I just knew that there are jobs and you can do when you have a PhD in chemistry. But then there was one thing before I started to apply for a job, because at that time, my English was still very bad.
Oh.
I thought, with this kind of English, I cannot start to work in industry. I really need to improve my English. And that was the reason that I went to Toronto for 1 year to do a postdoc, which then helps me to get my English to the good level. I could use it when I started to work in industry.
And I can imagine that your curiosity must have served you well throughout all of this, your endurance and your persistence. I love hearing you say, I decided not to stay at the university, not to go the academic route, but I still wasn't quite sure what I was going to do in industry, but I was definitely going in that direction. I love that. So once you finished your postdoc, I assume that the year was enough to complete a postdoc, or could you have stayed longer? What was the turning point in terms of the 1 year in Toronto?
For a postdoc, actually, it does not matter how long you do it. You can do it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, or just half a year. For me, I had a scholarship for 1 year. I did not try to get another scholarship.
I see.
So, and then I started to apply in industry.
Did you have more of a target at that point in terms of, or directions of what kinds of things you were applying? I assume you had some specialized areas of chemistry that you were looking at?
It's called industrial chemistry.
Okay.
My professor at that time said, okay, you can apply at this company and at this company. And so then I started to do this. And he also, for one company, he wrote me a referral letter.
Oh, nice.
And then I looked in the internet, what kind of positions are there and what they are looking for. And this was the way I did it.
But that was new territory for you, right?
Yeah, it was. In hindsight, I think all those things probably I could have done then for higher, let's say, sophisticated.
In terms of the types of jobs that you were applying for, or?
No, just like the whole planning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you hadn't really done that before in terms of applying for work or looking for work in that arena. You might have had a job earlier in your life, but it wasn't the same kind of seeking out a professional role like that. Am I right about that?
Yes. Before I had some day jobs or during the holidays, like to earn money. But yes, these were just like very easy jobs.
Yeah, this is different. Hey, I have a PhD in chemistry. Do you have a job for me? So were you applying for jobs in the Toronto area, or were you looking to go back to Germany?
I applied in Germany. If I would have gotten a job in Toronto, that would have been fine. But I guess I was not confident enough to get a job in Toronto because I knew my English was better than at the beginning, but it was still not where I thought it should be. So I applied for jobs in Germany.
Yeah. So what happened after that? I assume you got a job.
I was so lucky because it was Fortune 500 company, so it was not too big but also not too small.
Yeah.
So the headquarters was in the US. I really needed my English because they work internationally. So I started in December 2004 and already in January and February of 2005, I traveled to South Africa for a tech transfer and to the US for a training. And during the years, I traveled a lot, some years more, some years less. And even if I did not travel, usually I had contact with people from other countries. This is what I really liked and what was fun to do.
What kind of company was it? You said it was Fortune 500. What kind of business were they in?
So that was the automobile industry.
Oh, okay, automotive.
They produce these ballasts you have underneath your car.
Yes. The catalytic converters?
Yeah.
Oh, the ones that people like to steal.
Yeah.
How long did you work for that company?
I worked 18 years for this company. After 2 years, another company bought them. And this company was a very big chemical company, but I still worked for at the site where I started to work. Then I started to work in another town, but it was still for this part of the company where I originally had started to work.
I see. But you got to work in different functional areas of the company?
Different functional areas and different locations. And then I went for several years and worked and lived in Shanghai. And I enjoyed a lot because I could work with people from India, Japan, Thailand, Korea, and travel there.
Wow.
And so this was a great experience to get to know all the people, different cultures, and so on.
Sounds like between the different countries, the people, and then the different functional areas, sometimes the different functional areas in a company can feel multicultural too, right? I'm curious, what were some of the different functional areas or parts of the company that you worked in?
If I started there, it was in process development. So that was to make sure that there was catalytic converters. So what we did, we bought from other companies the substrate. So this is like this honeycomb structure. And for then we prepared the catalytic mass that was coated in channels.
I see.
And then the people at R&D in the USA, sometimes they had funny ideas. Was the person who need to make sure that we can produce those parts in industrial quantity on big machines. And that was my job at that time. In hindsight, I have to say, I think this was really the job I enjoyed most.
Oh, interesting.
After several years, I tried different jobs in technical sales and marketing. But then I realized that's not so much I want to do and I'm not so good at. So then I went back to manufacturing and then I started to work in the area of continuous improvement. And I did my Lean Six Sigma certification, the green belt and the black belt, and worked on and helped to improve those processes and started to train other people and coach and mentor them with their projects.
So I imagine that the coaching and mentoring was something that you enjoyed.
That's all that I really could help people, and that at the end they benefited from it with the discussion like a light bulb went on. These are the kind of the moments I really enjoyed.
So this company you were at for 18 years, did you move on to another company, or is this the main company that you've worked for before you went off on your own and started your business?
This is really the company. It's just in today's day, the flagship company, that restructuring happens and so on. And where I guess I need to go a step before, because as I started to work with this company, or the company they bought, so it was in the northern part of Germany where I live now again. Then after coming back from Shanghai,
Yeah.
I worked at the headquarters in Germany, close to Frankfurt, and I felt I'm not so passionate anymore. For that time, I really had a lot of passion for my job. And then I was something is wrong.
Were you in a different job when you moved back to Germany?
Actually, I had still a very similar job that I had done in Shanghai. I had still also the same manager because she meets another person in Germany and she would love to keep me if I would like to take this position. And I thought it's interesting because then I get to know the headquarter and see then if maybe from there I can move on to another position. So it was still the same job, but it started already with the culture changes. Before this company was bought by a big German company, but the culture was still very different.
Yeah. I'm curious too, over the 18 years, you tried different functional areas and there were some that you enjoyed more than others. As you moved from one functional area to another, were those decisions made by you or by different managers? How did you decide to move from process into that first role in sales or from sales to marketing? How were those decisions made?
So it was more that I had the feeling I wanted to try something else. And then I told my manager. So then, for example, for the first position, my manager, he supported me to find something else. And for example, moving then back to manufacturing, that manager heard that I'm not so happy with my position. And he called me and said, hey, wouldn't you like to come back and work with me? First, it felt like a step back because I went back. It was a different job, but it was the same side. But then after a while, I thought it's a good move to work with those people again because I had really enjoyed it.
You were able to, as we say in coaching, to reframe how you were thinking about it and looking at where is this glass half full rather than where is it half empty.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when people are looking at a new opportunity, too often they focus on, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but they give too much weight to things like the job title or the salary, or will it look like I've been elevating my career versus the choice to be happy could actually be better and promote more growth than if they took the step towards what looks like growth and then end up being miserable or just not as satisfied. I give you a lot of credit for having those kinds of conversations with your managers and making some moves. You have to be in the right organizational culture also that supports those kinds of things. And what we call that when you have somebody in another division or department who says, hey, we'd love to have you here, we call that networking. But people don't always see it that way, but that's really what it is. It's all about those relationships that we've developed over time make a big difference in terms of how we make certain moves and how you feel about what you're doing at work. But then there's a point where you decided you were done with industry and you took a deeper interest in the coaching and mentoring side of things too. Take us there.
Yeah, so as I mentioned already, as I came back to Germany from Asia, I was not so passionate anymore. I started to search what else can I do or what can I do differently. And during this time, I worked with a coach who helped me. It took some time to figure out what I wanted to do. I got clear that I want to become a coach myself. And then in 2022, I started to take trainings to become a certified coach. And first, my plan was still to work for the company and to start to build my own business in parallel and then to see if I really like it and also if I can get it up from the ground and so on. And if I think I really want to do this, then I will leave the company.
Sure.
But then restructuring was happening and I got a new manager and not at all globally anymore. It did not really fit. I was not healthy at all anymore. And so then after a while, I decided it's the best time to leave.
That was in 2023, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And since then, you've been building your coaching practice. Is that correct?
Yes.
And because you had all that experience for years coaching and mentoring people, even though you didn't have the coaching credential at the time, I think there's tons of experience people can get even within industry to develop a lot of those skills. I could imagine that once you started the more formal coaching training, you probably realized, oh, I've already done some of this stuff. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think two things. I have done already some of this stuff, but then also, oh, if I would have known this before, then I could have done that stuff even better.
And maybe even had the company pay for some of the training. So now here we are in 2024. You have your own coaching business. I know that you primarily focus on STEM professionals and executives. Tell us what that looks like. And I think most people know what STEM is, but maybe you can clarify that for us.
Yeah, okay. There's something else that came to my mind, which may be important to mention. Is it okay if I mention it before I answer your question?
Of course.
See, you might wondering, because at the beginning I thought that I'm not good with people. And then suddenly I started to do training as a coach. And so actually what happened as I took this coach and worked with her, she asked me to ask other people about my strengths. And the main thing that came back was I'm good with people. It had surprised me totally, and it took me over 40 years to understand that I'm good with people.
I love that.
I guess also that was the reason that it took quite some time to realize that I want to become the coach.
I love the fact that you allowed yourself to be open to get feedback, to work with a coach, and to be encouraged to ask people what their experience of you at work was like. That's something I often encourage my clients to do too, is to ask people when they think of you at work, what comes to mind? Because sometimes those are the characteristics that stand out about what makes somebody unique. It's not about, oh, you really have a lot of great knowledge or you have a really good skill with this software. It's more like, you're a really nice person to work with. And if we make a mistake, you're very understanding and you help me troubleshoot. Or those are the qualities people really value. So that's wonderful, wonderful. Surprise. You are good with people. I'm glad you added that little tidbit because it's not so little, is it? But to have that discovery at 40, it's amazing. So tell us more about coaching business.
Yeah. As you mentioned already, so I coach STEM professionals. And the STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think this sounds now a bit stereotyped, but a lot of STEM people, for sure not all of them, are very rational, the way they think. And some of them also might be a bit nerdy. And I could include myself. I think of myself also that I think I'm a bit nerdy. And then also some, when it comes to social interactions, that then it's awkward for them. And there I include myself also socially with interactions. I don't feel so well with this. And so when I speak of STEM professionals, I think of those people. So I help them to overcome workplace challenges, as you mentioned already at the beginning, that they look forward to Mondays again. And so far, what I figured out is that they struggle with one or more of the following items. So that they have trouble with a colleague, a manager, or a team member, and find it difficult and frustrating to interact with them. Or that they are always stressed, that they have not done enough and could have done more, and that this keeps them maybe even up at night and negatively impacts their focus. The third thing is that they are anxious, that their coworkers are doing a better job, which then casts a negative light on them, which then leads to unhealthy competition and also to friction.
I love the way you captured that. I've seen so much of that too. And people, they end up torturing themselves with these things. And I love the fact that you're doing this work with them because you can say, I've been there and that was me. And we can work together to move through this and find other strategies and ways to make this better so that Mondays do become a happier place, but also to improve workplace relationships and all kinds of things. If people wanted to learn more about your work and your business, because I know you also do some speaking, and would like to learn more about your work, what would be the best place for them to find you?
The best place is to connect with me on LinkedIn because I post regularly on LinkedIn so they can see what I post. But then often use it to communicate via LinkedIn notes.
Yeah, that's great. I think there's a lot of people out there who could benefit greatly from having a chance to speak with you. We have people listening to this podcast who are trying to decide what's next for them. What would be a key piece of advice you might offer them about working through their process of figuring out what's next?
So what I figured out for me is what I call to improve my mental toughness. So this was when I was still working for the company, and in parallel, I was doing the training to become a certified coach. And so feelings of stress, overwhelm, anxiety, they became so big that I also had stomach issues and so on. So then I was, okay, and how can I change it? So then I found tools to train my mental toughness, to strengthen the part of my brain that serves me and to quiet the part that sabotages me. Doing this really helped me to build my business, and not only to build it, but also to enjoy the process. I trained my mental toughness already before, and I could have enjoyed work far more before. And I think this also would have improved my performance before. I would say probably this is not for all people because there are already people who are mentally tough.
Sure.
But if not, and if people have these feelings of stress, overwhelm, anxiety, then it's really what I would recommend to do because I think this gives you a good foundation, baseline to deal with all the other things.
I think also some of those feelings of stress, anxiety, and overwhelm come from just not knowing what direction you want to go in. And so some of the things you're pointing to in terms of training your mental toughness, giving yourself an opportunity to reframe, like we talked about a moment ago. How can I see this glass as half full rather than half empty kind of thing? But I'm curious if there were any particular resources that you tapped into at the time to help to strengthen your mental toughness in the process.
I found the concept of cognitive intelligence. The founder of this is Sheila Chamin, and I also did the training for coaches. First, I read the book, and then I tried already if it works. And as I realized that just doing a bit worked already so much for me, I then decided to do the training because then I want to learn more about it. But then I thought, if it works for me, it will also work for other people, and I want to use it with my clients. This is a big part of what I use to train my own mental toughness, but also the mental toughness of my clients.
Great. We'll add a link into the show notes for positive intelligence as well, if people want to look into that. And we'll have, of course, a link also to your website. Corinna, thank you so much for being here today and staying up a little bit later in Germany time to talk to me. I wish you all the best going forward with your coaching practice.
Thanks a lot, Stanley. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking around to the end of my interview with Corinna Freitag. What is your key takeaway from our conversation? If you are interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygulerloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 263. And while you're there, you can also subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. If you're feeling it, please help me to inspire more people to grow their careers by writing an honest rating and brief review on Apple Podcasts. There's an Apple Podcasts button right there on the website. Take a look. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out, Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career that Fulfills You. It's available through my website, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, independent bookstores, or through your local library. You can also help sustain this podcast by buying me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ Tammy G.L. Since this podcast is self-funded, your support is acknowledged and appreciated. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your career and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.